Thanks for joining us. I'm Chris Charbonneau. I am the associate publisher for SpinSheet magazine. Tonight we've got a really great show. I actually had the pleasure of meeting Jerry, gosh, it was at the boat show last year in October. I met him because I joined a Facebook page that he started, and the fact that he lived just over in DC, not too far from Annapolis, I thought, hey, let's talk to this guy. And he turned out to be fantastic. He turned out to be somebody that we really wanted to profile in our Start Sailing Now feature. And we'll talk about what that is a little bit more later. But anyhow, I think you're in for a treat. So thanks for tuning in. Before we get started, of course, if you've seen this before, I am the one that's in charge of taking care of some business. And that usually involves thanking an advertiser. And in this case, I want to start with thanking Sail Time. And if you guys aren't familiar with Sail Time, this is a great organization. They've been a great advertiser of ours. They actually are sort of I don't want to call them a boat club. They're kind of unique, but they offer membership and they also offer ownership. They also offer a sailing school, ASA, all the American Sailing Association classes. So check them out if you haven't before. They're a great supporter of ours, and I think they've got a really unique sort of access to sailing, and that's kind of what we're here and talking about. They've got a really cool, unique fleet too. If you actually own a boat, you can put your boat into their fleet while still chartering it out and maybe even make a little bit of money off of it. So check them out. Also, Diversified Marine, want to thank them. They've been a long-time supporter of SpinSheet. And basically, Diversified Marine is just the yacht care specialist. And if everything from maintenance, repair, installations, and even restorations, give them a shout. They are awesome. They really know what they're doing, and we really appreciate their support. And just like with any of our advertisers, I like to say, if you want to support us, support them. It's the same thing. And because we can't do what we do, bring you exciting and fantastic online content like this, or bring you the magazine without them. So please pay them a visit. And in this day and age, and with how many ads you see, going up and saying, you know what, I read SpinSheet magazine. I really like the fact that you advertise with them. That goes a long way these days. So we appreciate your support in doing that with our advertiser. We also have a very special treat for tonight, something we haven't had before, and that is going to be a giveaway. Boat Life is a supporter of SpinSheet, and they are one of the oldest brands out there. Now, they sell a lot of things, but really what they're known for is their cleaning products. And they're making a heck of a lot of sanitizer these days, just so you know. But what we're going to do today is a little bit different. So as you know, you can ask questions along the way here in the comments section. If we use your question, we're going to throw your name into a little hat. And at the end of the show, we are going to go ahead and give you life wax for your life. It's basically wax for your boat, but it's one of the best products out there. You can buy Boat Life products in a lot of different places. If you have a West Marine near you or some other chandlery, by all means, go visit them. But they've been gracious enough to provide this giveaway for tonight. And as well, if you use Spin3, even though you can buy them at any place, if you buy their product online at boatlife.com and use Spin3 as the coupon code, 25% off. That's huge. That's enormous. So please, by all means, if you're interested in even if you don't win your life wax tonight, there's a lot of other very cool products out there. Check them out. You can get 25% off. That's a pretty darn good deal. So do that. We appreciate you, Boat Life. Thank you very much. So next up, let's do this. I'm going to bring on Molly. Molly is our managing editor for all of our magazines, but specifically for SpinSheet as well.
Happy Friday to you. What are we drinking tonight?
So I'm glad you asked. I know a lot of things are changing. It's been a rough few months for everybody. And I brought back another sponsor, but somebody local here in Annapolis that we wanted to give a shout out to. And that is Forward Brewing and their boat beer. They are now open and down the street from us. And we're very excited. We're very excited for all of our businesses out there that are able to open up. It's not even a microbrew. I think they call it a nano brew. Like,
nano.
I'm surprised they even serve 12-ounce cans. Like, I think it's supposed to come in these little bitty cups. But anyway, I'm having that in the
koozie. Well, you know, it's just kind of a steamy day out there. I took a lunchtime walk and I went out there like with my nice outfit on, feeling all fresh. And I came back looking like I'd just done the screw pile regatta.
Yeah.
And so I thought a fruited rum drink seemed like the way to go. So I'm having a Mount Gay with pineapple juice and ginger beer, a little recipe I found on the internet.
That's a fantastic choice.
I don't know. It's super yummy. So I'm not going to talk much tonight because I get to sit back and drink my rum drink, but I really just wanted to pop on here to introduce Beth.
Yes.
Longtime readers of SpinSheet know the name Beth Crabtree. Beth has been with our team for 10 years. And, you know, for me as the editor of SpinSheet, I feel like I get a lot of credit for things I don't do. And it's never just me writing this magazine. We have an entire village of people to put it together. And Beth is an integral part of that team. And I think we call her senior editor, but she's essentially a staff writer. Beth writes a lot of our meaty features. Hi, Beth. This year alone, Beth has written, or she's interviewed a lot of the top experts in safety in and offshore sailing, from John Roumaniere, who wrote the Annapolis School Annapolis Book of Seamanship, and many, many other books about safety. She's interviewed John Tahansky and Renee Mell, both directors over at Navy Sailing. John is the director of the varsity sailing team, and Renee does offshore sail training. She's interviewed lots of top scoring offshore sailors who've won major races. And she's on a first name basis with all of them. So you see Beth's name around, but no one ever really talks about Beth. So I just wanted to acknowledge what an important party she is to our team. And as a sailor, she's been sailing her whole life. And that is everything from sailing on a family cruising boat with her own kids, of which she has 5. And also doing the bow on a 40-foot race boat. So Beth is quite an accomplished sailor. But one thing that I've always admired about you, Beth, is that you have an endlessly curious approach to sailing. Is you know, expert as you actually are at sailing, that you have never been afraid to take a class or bring a coach on your boat. I remember you brought a guy from J-World on the boat and helped your family work better together as a crew. And you took a cruising class there. And I've always admired that about you. So I'm going to go away and drink my drink. Have fun interviewing Jerry and Julia. And thanks for taking over for me tonight. And I'm going to go party in the green room. So cheers, guys. I'll see you at halftime.
Thanks, Molly. Yeah, enjoy that drink. It looks great. I'm going to bring on our guest, who is Jerry Lee, and we are just thrilled to have him. We've been doing something at SpinSheet for many years now called Start Sailing Now. And every month I get the pleasure of interviewing someone who started sailing as an adult, didn't grow up with parents that got him into it, didn't grow up in a yacht club or going to lessons every summer, but somehow fell into sailing or was introduced to sailing as an adult and jumped in with 2 feet. And that's what we like to do with Start Sailing Now, is every month profile someone who started as an adult, got into it in a big way. And it's just fascinating and very inspiring to hear their stories. And what we really hope is that when you read their stories, you're inspired to take your own sailing a little farther. Or if you're not a sailor yet, but you see those boats out on the Chesapeake and you think, I wonder who those people are and how they started. And gosh, it's a shame that I didn't grow up doing that. You're going to figure out you are just perfect to start sailing right now, and you'll be inspired by their stories. So Jerry Lee is someone that we interviewed earlier this year, and here he is right now.
Hi.
Hello, hello. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
So happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
I kind of mixed myself a drink in the same vein that Molly did. It was hot and steamy. It felt like summer went out for the first time, I thought, today. Kind of got that wall of humidity hitting me when I walked out this morning. So I have mixed myself up a mojito, and I have used some mint from my garden in my front yard, which my mint is taking over my whole herb garden this year. But happy to have it. What are you drinking, Jerry?
I'm drinking a Kolsch called Summertime. Actually, one of my boating friends left it on my power boat, not a sailboat. But yeah, it's actually delicious. It's pretty stuffy outside, and I'm really enjoying it right now.
Awesome. Sounds refreshing. So, Jerry is boat owner, and so this evening we're going to talk about not only just getting into boating and getting into sailing as an adult, but going a step farther and becoming a boat owner. So Jerry's going to tell us a little bit about his story, how he got introduced to sailing, how he kind of progressed along and into boat ownership, and what that's meant, and all the amazing adventures that it's opened up for him. So just give us a little bit of background about yourself, where you grew up, and how you started sailing, which I know was out in California. So tell us how you got there.
Okay, so a little bit about me. A lot of people don't know this about me, but I'm actually originally from South Korea. I moved here around 2001, 2002. My family's from like a very inland part of Korea, which is kind of funny because it's a small peninsula. So none of us were into doing anything on the water at all. And when I moved to the United States, I was in San Diego, going to high school and college. And I used to teach martial arts privately to make some money while I was going to school. And one of my students became a very good friend of mine. And you got to remember, at this point, I don't know anything about sailing, anything about boats. I didn't even know how to do kayaking. And one day he calls me up. He goes, "Hey, Jerry, come on down to Coronado. Coronado is this beautiful island just outside of San Diego." And I drive down there, and I'm at the skate park with the little beach. If you've been to San Diego, you probably know what I'm talking about. And on this beach, there's a bunch of little dinghies. And he flips one over, puts it in the water, and he goes, "Come on in." I'm like, "Okay, where are we going?" So I get in there, and we're like, he's rowing out, and I realize we're going into this mooring field with these beautiful sailboats. And I think that's kind of when it already started for me. And he gets me onto his West Sail 32. For those of you that don't know, it's a 32 footer, but it's actually like a floating condo. It's huge. There's a lot of room inside. And I got on board his boat. I went down below. It's all teak and brass. It's beautiful. And he took me for a little sail around Coronado Bay. And I remember it's a slow cutter, but you go out in the Pacific, you get a lot of consistent winds, and we're just punching through these waves like it's nothing. And I'm like, I just loved it. And at that moment, I was like, one day, I was only like 20, 21. I don't know if I was old enough to drink yet. I just told myself, one day this is what I'm gonna do. And it was like an idea virus in my head. And every year, as I got older, I brought myself one step closer.
Yeah. So you sailed with your friend in California, and then speed us up a bit to where you are in Florida, because that's when I think you really kind of made it your own.
Yeah. So out in San Diego, I didn't really have a chance to do much other sailing. Number one, I was like a broke college student. I did have a kayak eventually, so that was pretty cool. I went to Florida for law school, and of course, I'm studying, and I can't stop thinking about sailing. So I found out there's a little lake called Lake Wahlberg that's pretty much infested with gators and alligators. And if you go there, you could rent kayaks, you could rent little hobies, and sunfish. And for some people who are new, sunfish is a little like, I think the Coast Guard calls it like a sail pad. It's a little, it's pretty much a surfboard with like a sail on it, and it's like almost like a catch rig where there's only a cat rig where there's only a mainsail. Really easy boat to learn on. So they got me doing a swim test, and they got me to show them I could ride a boat, and I didn't really know what I was doing. I just went out and did it. And they're like, we gotta see you launch the boat and bring it back in. So I went out there, and of course the boat's doing this because I don't really know what I'm doing. And I came back in. They're like, good enough. So for a good semester to a year, I would go out there pretty regularly and drive this little sunfish around, and it was really fun. And that's kind of like what got me to basics. Oh, this is how a sail works. And I guess we'll talk about this later, but I think this is like the best way to get into it, actually.
Yes. Yeah, you've done a lot of self-learning, and we want to hear more about that. So after you graduated from law school, if I've got this right, you had a little disposable income, and what's one of your first investments?
Yeah, so I lucked out and got a this is back then when law grads were not getting jobs at all. The economy had just crashed, but I got lucky. I speak Korean, and I got a at the time what it seemed to me like an astronomical amount of money. Don't get me wrong, it wasn't that much, but like coming from having nothing to all of a sudden having a job, that was quite a difference. So I guess we could talk about this later, but the way I live, I keep my expenses low and live below my means. So I pretty much maintain my like college lifestyle and saved up a bunch of money. And I didn't really need it all, but I spent a good chunk of it on a sailboat. And this sailboat's called that's a Flying Scot. So that is me. It's almost like that boat, actually. It's a Montgomery 17. So a Flying Scot would be like a lighter weight dinghy. People call it dinghy. I think it's like in between.
That's you with the sailing club, right?
Yeah, that's actually me with
Yeah.
Steve, who runs what was his organization? He does sailboat racing for veterans. Actually, really,
Sailing club. Oh, okay. Yeah.
which Project Mayhem is what it's called. But my Montgomery 17, it's kind of a little bit shorter than that, but like much tankier. And I drove up to Pennsylvania and bought the boat. I didn't really know what I was looking for. I've always been kind of handy. So that kind of helped out, but I just looked at it. It had all the sails, no holes. I didn't even get to launch it. It was just sitting on a trailer. And I bought this Montgomery 17. Cool thing about the Montgomery 17, and this is kind of the way I did it with my boat ownership, is it's a very, very seaworthy boat. So it'll forgive you for a lot of mistakes you make. The reason I chose that boat was I read an article about, now that I'm thinking about it, this is really crazy that he did this, but a guy took a Montgomery 15, which is even smaller than the 17, and about 4 times lighter, if I remember correctly, and went from Los Angeles to Hawaii. I think it took him like 5 to 7 weeks or something like that, and he just had like a radio direction finder. He didn't even have like a sextant. This is back in the 80s, so there's no GPS. And I told myself, well, if a 15-foot version of this boat survived that trip, the 17-foot version of this boat's gonna throw any newbie mistakes I throw at it. And that's exactly how it worked out. I got this boat. I had a truck, and I would launch it in Tampa Bay. I moved back to Florida after my first job. And I just sailed the pants off that thing. And I think that's when I learned the most. I didn't even know how to like really reef a sail. And I don't really recommend this. You really should learn this before you do this. But I'll be out there, and if you know anything about Florida, the weather changes like that, and it's not always forecasted. So I learned how to take down a sail real quick, how to reef a sail real quick, go to the foredeck and change out the storm jib real quick. So that was kind of like a really quick, good way to learn. Maybe you wouldn't do it when you're in your 30s like I am, but you probably would when you're 24 or 25 or however old I was. So that was really cool. I did a lot with that boat. We used to go on camping trips out on the islands in the Gulf Coast. We even did a Miami to Key West trip that took us I think 2 days back and forth. So 5 days total, 4 days total. And that really taught me about like the basics of cruising. It was really cool.
So what are you sailing now? You moved up to the Chesapeake. You moved up in boat size. Tell us about the boat you're sailing now, and maybe some things that you wish you'd known before you bought either one of your 2 boats.
I guess we should go back to my Montgomery 17. Her name was Jindo. So I got the Montgomery 17, and if you're looking at a trailerable pocket cruiser, this might be really helpful because it seemed more accessible because it's on a trailer. I could haul it around. I could keep it in storage. I don't have to worry about a slip, and you do save a lot of money doing that. But I think one thing I wish I had known before that was it's a pain in the butt, like launching every time you go out, and you have to step the mast too. When you're young and strong, it's not a big deal, but I have a shoulder injury now, and if I did it now, it would kind of hurt my shoulder. And
That's about the size boat I grew up on.
Yeah.
So I'm familiar with the launching every time and the stepping the mast. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if I could give advice about a pocket cruiser or a smaller boat, don't be afraid to pay a little bit to keep it on a slip. It's okay to trailer it too. It's really cool because you could drive it to different places and launch. That's something you could never do on a boat that's kept in a slip. Or if you don't even have to go something that small, you get like a 25-footer in a slip. And launching a boat from the dock is a lot easier than hauling out a boat that's got a keel. That's what I think Montgomery had, like almost a 3-foot keel. So that's one thing. And so that's something I wish I had known. Something really cool about that little boat was something broke, and we'll talk about this later. But fixing broken things or maintaining a boat is like a huge part of boat ownership. And on something that's small, it's really easy to do. I learned how to do fiberglass work on that boat. I remember one time I hit a concrete seawall with a Montgomery 17 going something like 3 knots. It was quite quick, and it made a dent about 4 inches deep. And if that happened on my big sailboat, I'll be like, oh my God, what am I gonna do? But it's a little sailboat, even though it's the same repair, because it's a small sailboat. I was like, hey, I'm just gonna build the fiberglass up and fix it, and I did, and it actually no one can tell. In fact, that repair is probably stronger than what it was before. So having a little boat like that makes things a lot less daunting for you when you have to go fix it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So moving on to the 30,
yeah. What are you sailing now?
Yeah, I got a Bristol 30. It's
that's a beautiful boat.
Yeah, it's I if I say so myself, I think it's got some classic lines. I think it's really pretty. I got this boat.
There it is. We see her right now.
Yeah, that's my friend Camille and me. I got this boat actually at the Chesapeake Bay Maritime Museum for really cheap.
Over in St. Michael's, right?
It's a beautiful place to visit. A really, really nice museum, in my opinion. I recommend everyone go check it out. And they put out listings. They update it too. So if you're looking for a boat, it's a good place to look. And it's not just boats like this. You'll have much bigger boats. You have wooden boats. You have small pocket cruisers too, power boats, dinghies. So it's a great place to start looking. So I got this boat over there. Named her Sonora. Sonora del Viento means sound of the wind, kind of like a musical sound of the wind. Sorry, most of you probably speak better Spanish than I do. And I got this boat. Let's see. The biggest thing I noticed was, like, as you move up in size, things get more complex. Things get bigger. This boat is not twice as long as my Montgomery 17, but it's probably like got 8 times the interior space that the other boat does. Just because as the boat gets longer, it also gets wider. And it's not the size of things that's intimidating. It's like the additional systems. For example, when I got Sonora, she has a head. That's some plumbing. Head is a bathroom for boats. She has a head and freshwater tank. So that means you got hoses going everywhere and fittings that's going to eventually corrode and you're going to fix. A real electrical system. Charge up your phones. I actually rely on mobile devices for navigation. So that's the thing. The anchor, the roads, like, a lot more complicated.
Look at that. That's a great shot right there.
My Delmarva trip that we probably later.
Well, we want to hear about your Delmarva trip. We're going to take a quick pause and we're going to bring back Molly for a minute. And after that, we're going to hear more about your adventures on that beautiful Bristol. Molly, are you coming back and tell us a little bit more about our Start Sailing Now program?
I'm back. So I just wanted to briefly tell you guys about Start Sailing Now, but because besides having articles in each issue of SpinSheet. We started the Start Sailing Now program in 2008. We did our first edition. It's an annual guide. It is made for new sailors. And it came about because people call the SpinSheet office all the time and say, hey, I'm interested in learning how to get into sailing, and someone told me to call you. And I mean, half the time they don't even know we're a magazine. They just think, well, we would know how to teach them how to sail. And we found we answered the same questions over and over again. And so we put it all into one place. I happen to be the one who put Start Sailing Now together, but there are a number of contributors in there. And what you'll find in the Start Sailing Now guide are some tips on how to get into sailing affordably, or how to try it affordably. A whole section on what you wear on a boat, what you might already own from hiking or running or skiing that might take you out, be just fine to go out on a boat in. We talk about really smart questions you should ask while you're choosing a sailing school, because we do think it's a great idea to get some training in sailing. And you need to figure out what's a good school and what's not a good school, whether or not you need certifications. We have a section on life jackets. What kind of life jacket is better for kind of boat, for different kinds of boats. There's also a section on family sailing and getting kids into sailing, and all the terms that sailors are in the English-speaking world know. Not all of them, but I mean, the ones, if you learn these 22 terms, you can make your way around a boat. So anyway, just wanted to tell you about our Start Sailing Now guide. You'll find it in a lot of places where you can pick up SpinSheet, and also in some libraries and things like that. I mean, when libraries are open, of course. You can always find it at spinsheet.com. You click on Start Sailing Now, and you find the online guide. So we hope if you know someone who's interested in getting into sailing, or you are that person, please check it out. It's for free, like all of our publications, and we made it for you. So back to you, Beth, Jerry, and Julia.
Yeah, so we're going to welcome on Julia now. She's a friend of Jerry's, and they've done some sailing together, and she's done some good, got a lot of experiences of sailing in her own right. So Julia Janzer, welcome very much.
Thank
How
you.
Are you?
I'm doing pretty well. I'm down in North Carolina. It's also mucky down here. I'm waiting for a little bit of wind.
Because you're a avid windsurfer, right?
Yes. My main sport is windsurfing. I started it 19 years ago, which is terrifying because it ages me. And that's sort of what got me into sailing first. Just the idea of where's the wind coming from really helped get me started. Yeah.
Great. So do you have a cocktail down there, or a mocktail?
I am actually being boring and drinking water because I'm hoping that the wind will pick up and I'll have a nice evening session. So
yeah,
staying hydrated.
Fingers crossed you get out there tonight.
Yeah, I will. It might be slow putzing around, but I'll definitely get out. Yeah.
Well, I really want to hear about the adventures that you and Jerry have had, and Jerry and others have had on this beautiful Bristol that he has. Do you want to tell us just quickly how you got into sailing?
Yeah. So my dad is an avid sailor, but he always sails with his buddies. So I never really got into those trips. I started sailing in 2007 when I met some people in Poland my age who were sailing. And the funny thing is, I don't even know the word for wrench in Polish. So I'm one of the few who don't know the proper Polish or English vocabulary for sailing. I then in 2012 had the opportunity to take an Atlantic trip to move a boat to the Bahamas, because at the last minute they needed one more crew member, and they were willing to take anyone who doesn't get seasick easily. So I ended up being on that boat for about 10 days. And then I had a few adventures with Jerry as well. So it's been sort of scattered in between, but it's been memorable. Yeah.
So so tell us about some of your biggest adventures you've had. I know that there was a Delmarva circumnavigation, and you can tell us about that, or if there's another one you want to start with.
I think we should start with one with the smaller ones.
All right.
That me and Julia did. That was a lot.
Okay.
Do you want to talk about the Annapolis one or the Baltimore one?
I'll let you talk about the Baltimore one. I mean, I'm not letting you, but I'll have I think it's better if you bring it up.
Sure. So the funny thing is, I know Jerry from salsa dancing, and I found out he was into sailing, and he always made the joke that I looked like I was going sailing, and I said, well, that's because I want to, and so that's basically how I ended up on his sailboat. We ended up going to Baltimore from, I don't even remember the port in Maryland, Jerry. You'll have to fill this.
That was Deal, Maryland.
Deal, Maryland, and it took us about 12 hours to get down there because we were going upwind.
Yeah, we're beating into the wind that day.
Yeah, and there was a lot of chop. Yeah, I remember. I shouldn't say this about the captain, but you did get a little bit seasick almost.
I get seasick.
We ended up docking in Sandy Point because the wind was picking up and we were both exhausted. Supposedly, we were the first sailboat in Sandy Point that the guy had ever seen there.
That wasn't
there for 30 years. Yeah. Sorry?
That was, we were the first big sailboat to make it in there. That wasn't from that marina because they have smaller boats out there.
Yeah. So that was pretty cool. And then we made our way to Baltimore. We took the dinghy and tied on to the Broadway pier and then went salsa dancing.
So is this a pattern with this boat that it seeks out fun dance parties?
I mean, I do, when I cruise somewhere, I do look for salsa dance parties. That's kind of a boat mission, I guess. Like I keep telling myself that, but I get caught up in the sailing aspect of it. But yeah, Baltimore has a great outdoor dance party on Broadway Pier, so you could actually cruise there just do that.
It was a good excuse. Yeah.
yeah, it is actually just an excuse to go sailing, really.
Yeah.
How about another one? There was another adventure that you were on.
Yeah, so I used to teach yoga on Sunday nights, and so that always got in the in the way of us planning for like a full 2 or 3 day weekend trip. And so I finally took off time from that, and we had a 3-day weekend, and we decided to book this trip for Annapolis, and we started it. And of course, the weather was absolutely uncooperative, and it was freezing cold rain for most of the trip, but we still had a blast. At one point, the jib flew out, and Jerry was out there trying to, I don't know, you can fill them in on the tech.
The further got jammed, and Julia had to take over the helm while I went up forward to fix the furler. That was pretty fun.
Of course, this at night, like 8 or 9 at night, and the wind's like crazy.
Because that's when things always go wrong at night, when it's dark.
Always. Yeah, so that mishap happened, but then we had like a nice docking. We had a great sail the next morning. The weather started looking good, and I don't remember where we were going, but we ended up
mooring behind the bridge, right?
Yeah,
the bridge, right? So that's pretty cool. I guess a lot of you sailors that never cruised before, that might be something cool to experience. There's a bridge that you go past in Annapolis to get to the mooring fields. And you radio in, and they stop the traffic. Everyone's mad at you now. They open the bridge, and then you go under, and you pay like $30 to pick up a mooring there. It's really nice. And I guess like you mentioned in the last story, yeah, we there. So a lot of times when you could dock at a slip, but what we like to do is we anchor or pick up a mooring. And when you do that, you can't really swim to shore, right? So so cruisers will generally have usually a rubber dinghy. I have a PVC one myself, and we deploy that, and then we use that to go ashore. Of course, in Annapolis, they got free dinghy docks. They got showers, like Julia was saying, free public showers. It's pretty cool. So we did just that. It was stormy the whole time, though.
Yeah. But then the next day, we ended up getting out, and we were going near that island. I don't remember where. And
you remember so much more than I do.
Yeah, well, all I remember is that at like 4 a.m, we start having engine troubles, or maybe it was like in the morning we were trying to get an early start. It was still dark, so maybe 4 is just me saying way past my usual wake time, way too early. But yeah, and then you had to like fiddle with the engine. We finally got it started. We were thinking that we might have to. Yeah, that was our mishap trip, but it was.
Yeah. Julie's only been on trips with like some kind of problem with me.
No, Baltimore was fine.
Yeah,
So Baltimore, Annapolis, any other favorite destinations, Jerry, that you like to take around the Bay?
I've been up and down all over the Bay. Not to say I'm super experienced, but yeah, Julia's probably got those texts from me where I'm like, I am stuck or something like that. I need a weather report. So it's good, you know. She's been my short side support before, but I did a solo Dermava Peninsula circumnavigation. That's the peninsula that makes the eastern shore of Chesapeake Bay, and
And that's quite a trip to do, even with a full crew. So yeah, please share with us a little bit about how you manage single handling and the trip in general, because it's got an inshore leg and a canal
Yeah,
and
that's
an
really cool.
offshore leg. So tell us a little bit about that, what you learned along the way.
Before I did that trip, I actually did a solo trip down to Norfolk. I figured that was a good stepping stone. Julia, you've heard about every one of these trips. I don't know if you remember because I text you, but so I that was actually a really good learning trip because one of those storms that nobody predicts popped up right as I was getting into Cape Charles, and I wasn't gonna stop, but I pulled into Cape Charles. I actually lost the mooring cleat on that storm, so it was a pretty nasty storm. But after that trip, I felt a lot more confident, and I actually really want to do a Bermuda trip soon, and that's been kind of like a goal for me. So I figured the Delmarva is a great stepping stone to the Bermuda trip. I went clockwise. I think that's what most people do. So I'll start up in West. At this time, it's West River because I moved my boat from Deal to West River. Headed north, stopped in Baltimore, spent 5 days there. Headed further north, went through the canal. Stopped at Reedy Point North. That's a little island just outside the canal. I guess I should explain what the canal is. It's a 25-mile long canal that they dug on the northern end of the Chesapeake Bay, so that you don't have to go all the way around to go to Norfolk or any of the other places within the bay, and you can get big cargo ships coming through there. The canal itself is quite an experience. I did it at night because somebody told me at night the lights are really eerie, and it really is. You get these regular lights every 50 meters for miles and miles and miles. It kind of looks like watching those like retro like sci-fi films in the 80s, like laser light going down, and you get big container ships coming through while you're on your little sailboat like puttering along. It feels like you could like reach over and touch them. They feel like they're really close, but really not. Yeah, I stopped at Cape May, right outside the Coast Guard recruiting center. I want to like paint like a little picture for people who haven't gone cruising yet. So you can do things like this where you could cruise to different places, and there's always anchorages, usually designated anchorages, so it's really safe. Right, so you put your hook down, that's anchoring. Take your dinghy out and just explore whatever you want to. I checked out everywhere in Cape May. That was really cool. You see all these like wildlife. Cape May is a big drinking town, so I did like the Romans do and went drinking a lot. You could walk around the city, and it's like it's really I guess it's kind of a lifestyle that I haven't fully adopted yet, but got a taste of. So that's something you could do. After I left Cape May, I actually got boarded coming out of Cape May by the U.S. Coast Guard. That was an experience. I went down to Ocean City. On the way to Ocean City, I wasn't going to stop at Ocean City, but I got knocked down. Being knocked down means like your mast went like this. Usually means your mast touched the water, but it actually was still a few feet off the water. My first knockdown. So that was pretty cool. That wasn't cool at all, but it's good to have an experience. A little bit about me. I there's something weird about the way my mind works. I don't really experience fear like most people do. I'm not saying I'm unique in this. I know a bunch of people who are like that. I honestly think Julia's kind of like that too. Maybe she doesn't really vocalize it as I do, but I definitely have fear, but like it doesn't cripple me. That's what I'm trying to say. I think a lot of sailors are like that. But when I got knocked down, and then there was like 12 hours of thunderstorms, like really bad thunderstorms all night. Like that's one of the few times I felt like genuine terror and fear. So that's a little heads up that moments like that are going to happen to you if you get into sailing, especially if you have your own boat. but don't let that discourage you, because going through all those experiences really builds character, builds confidence. I know worse storms are out there, and I'm probably going to go through a few of them at some point in my sailing. So I consider myself fortunate to have pretty much experienced like successively worse storms.
Well, I can see though that you've built, from the day trips to the overnight trips to the, you've built yourself a foundation going a little bit farther each time. And I hear you saying, Bermuda is a goal. And these are all steps to get there. So we have a Facebook question.
Hi, Philip.
Let's see.
So,
Yeah, Philip, thanks for the question. He's asking, how many trips, how many years have you been crew on a boat before you became a boat owner?
I can't remember how many times, but it's a lot. Let's see. I went through my sailing history before. I in terms of regular dedicated sailing, it's only been like say 4 years for me. Everything before that was just spotty. No, I guess the Montgomery 17, if I could count it, I could count it as like 1 or 2 years of sailing. I don't count miles. It's kind of like motorcycles. I don't really see the point in counting miles. I do want to get like my swallow tattoo when I get my 5,000 miles, but I figure I'd just do that once I do an ocean crossing. I don't think this is the best way to do it, but I actually haven't crewed on very many boats, considering not that I've been sailing that long, but considering how long I've been sailing. I really do think the better way to do it is to crew on a boat. I think what you should do is strive to get to a point where a skipper lets you take the helm, because that's when you really understand what's really going on. Even if you're not making the calls, taking the helm really changes things around. And once you've done that and then you get your own boat, it's probably a lot. It helps with the learning curve quite a bit. But I'm more on that. I just went ahead and did it spectrum of sailing. So to answer your question, I haven't crewed on many boats.
So, but this might be a good chance for you to talk a little bit about the sailing club. You've joined the Sailing Club of Washington,
Yes, yeah.
And maybe how that can be an opportunity to skipper with someone else on board and kind of bring you along in being a mentor in sailing, as well as making friends.
Yeah. So the super cool thing about Sailing Club of Washington, it's very cheap. I don't want to use the word cheap. It's very affordable. I think even after the price hikes, I paid $60 for my renewal. And each of these sailing and clubs like this will exist in every city. I don't know if they're going to be as affordable, but it's not going to be prohibitive. It's going to be under a few $100s in any city I could think of. So this is different from a yacht club, which is a little bit more exclusive. Really cool too, by the way. A little hint: get a friend in a yacht club if you don't want to pay the yacht club fees.
It's like sailing on other people's boats, right?
Yeah. And make friends with them. And that's really what it is. Whatever club you join, you make friends with people. Be polite. Be useful. Be eager. Really eager. Just be the guy who's willing to do anything. One of my trips down to Norfolk, I had a friend named Elvis. He might be watching this right now. And Elvis was a great sailor, and still is. In fact, he just got a sailboat back. He was telling me the way he learned. He went out to yacht clubs and told them, "Hey, look, I'll go on the foredeck." And by the way, foredeck is a kind of a difficult position where, the part of the boat that moves the most is the bow, and you're out there holding onto something, trying to do a sail change or even just heaving up an anchor or something like that. But and you're getting splashed by huge waves. Sometimes your whole body is just engulfed in water as a big wave comes over you. And Elvis told me he is just willing to do whatever the skipper wanted him to do, and he learned really fast. And the great thing about learning like that is you don't have to spend a dime, actually. Usually people give you food and alcohol to do this. I mean, to do it. But if I could go back to my sailing club, it's a little bit different. SCOW, Sailing Club of Washington, is what I'd call more of a accessible club where let me just explain what it is. We have 9 Flying Scots, I think, and 2 cruisers. That's Catalina. And clubs like these will have a fleet like that, and you spend a small amount of money taking advantage of their training program. So usually the costs are about the same as like other local sailing schools, maybe a little bit cheaper, but they'll train you up to drive like a Flying Scot, and after you do that, you could actually check out boats whenever you like for much cheaper than owning your own boat, and that'll it's like a really good way to go sailing, and it also gives you access to racing. I started racing 2 years ago. Because
Yeah, so that was really your introduction to racing was through Scow, right?
Yes, I've actually never raced on a sailboat before that.
And how do you like that? How's that? How do you find that compares to the cruising you've been doing?
First things first, it makes you much better sailor. Even if you're just a pure cruiser, and I'm more on the cruiser side of things, it helps you get there faster, safer, and more comfortable. The more comfortable part, I think, is the part that people don't really understand. And typically, as a lot of you know, more comfortable is also more faster. It's just it's like a feedback loop. So you do like a half a season, you already understand, okay, I need to change the sail shape of the mainsail for these conditions, and you go ahead and do it. And it's just, most people I know cruise with just very rudimentary knowledge of sailing, and I think like picking up racing really helps you enjoy, not just become a better cruiser, but like really enjoy cruising, because you're not getting beat up so much anymore.
Yeah, Julia, I see you nodding your head.
Oh yeah, well, I'm nodding my head because I think if I were, one problem right now is that I'm in a pretty intensive grad program, but there are a couple of things I've thought of doing in order to really get a kickstart in sailing. One of them, and this might be like wives' tale, because this was told to me 10 years ago when I first didn't have a job, which was, well, maybe you should look into whether you could, because at some point there was this deal where you could work as an instructor for the Navy, and if you did that, then they'd train you for free as long as you signed some contract to stay for however many years. And so that was one thing I considered. But then the other thing was, okay, if I were to get into racing or somehow get into some crew that's more competitive and more serious, you just pick up real quick, because the kind of people who are there are so eager about the sport that they're really supportive of you just getting moving. And,
yeah.
And
so
into it.
Yeah,
and it's sort of, you're fully in.
Yeah, I just want to pick up on that, the kind of people that are there, and tell us a little bit about the friends that you each have made through sailing, and how you found that sense of camaraderie in sailing.
Sorry, I'm reading the public comments, and it's pretty entertaining. Yeah, I'll let Julia start first. Yeah,
I think one of the things about sailing is anytime. I mean, for me, and I think for most people who enjoy sailing, what you get is this endorphin rush from being out on the water, being by the waves, feeling the weather in whatever state it's in. I mean, if it's terrible, then you're so relieved and happy when it's over that you're having an experience with these other people who are sharing the same intense endorphin rushing experience. And it feels like you've bonded a lot over very little time. I mean, Jerry and I haven't hung out much aside from on his sailboat, but we feel like very close friends. Like when I got on his sailboat, I had only known him from salsa dancing, so it seemed sort of stupid to get on a boat with an almost stranger. At the same time, at that time, I knew that he sort of needed crew, so that nothing could go wrong without him also being in trouble, was sort of my thought. But yeah, you just build this sense of friendship and trust, because when you're on a sailboat, you care for getting back and for making sure that everybody is safe on the boat. And that extends outward to just daily life, even when you're not on the sailboat. And yeah, I've always been happy to be land support when Jerry was doing his solo crew, just because you build that connection and that bond. So a lot of the friends I've made while sailing, I still keep in touch with. And they're also friends where if there's another sailing adventure and they need an extra person, or I have an opportunity for them, I know that I can be in touch after not contacting them for 2 years, and it'll be just like old times.
That's great to hear. So before we move over to last call and bring Chris and Molly back, I want to give you, Jerry, an opportunity to talk about a couple things, starting with your dream of growing diversity in sailing. And I want to make sure we have an opportunity to let you talk about that a little bit.
So kind of a sensitive subject, I guess, but I remember when I started sailing, I didn't really find a lot of people that I really related with. Being an immigrant, a foreigner, being young, I was even younger back then. It's actually changed a lot. It's gotten a lot better, and it's making sailing more enjoyable for me. But I'm not mentioning this because I'm complaining. What I'm trying to say is, we all read the articles and about how like sailing is supposedly dying. I actually don't agree with that, but to keep any sport going, you got to keep bringing new blood in, and if it just sticks with like one demographic, it severely limits how we could keep the sport going. And I think one of the easiest way to do that is like, how should I say this? Just get more people on it. Just let people know that there's other people like you. You know, it's not just some inaccessible, difficult sport that's kind of like only thing you see in movies. So like that's kind of been like a mission in the back of my mind. I want to help people understand, and I'm not just talking about like racial demographics. I'm talking about age, gender, and everything else. It's like every time someone sees me out on the water, or me and Julia, they see, I hesitate to use the word young because I'm in my mid 30s now, and I was in my 20s when this is really going on my head. But in the world of sailing, that is actually young, and
That's right. Yeah.
they see me and Julia on the water, and people are like, "Hey, look at that! Like that guy has a boat, and there's a woman on that boat." Actually, that's another thing. People don't really realize how many women there are on sailing nowadays. But to the public, it might seem like a very male-dominated sport. So, so that's kind of been like my mission. And to do this, first of all, I try to set examples because, we're out there. I'm out there, Julia's out there doing our thing. So that helps. But the other thing I did was I started a YouTube channel. I don't really have a lot of content on there. I discovered I have a knack for photography and video making, I guess. General artistic kind of thing. And people actually watch the video, so I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna like tell people, like use this channel to like let people know, hey, if you want to do this, you can do this. It's not fantasy. Like this is something you can do. You don't even have to go all out and just like become full-time cruisers. You could do it part of the year. You could go out every weekend. So that's kind of something I try to show. And the other thing is I started a Facebook group. It's called Younger Sailors. Yeah, I don't remember my name of my own Facebook group. Younger Adult Sailors United, to distinguish from like teenagers who are learning how to race, going to college to race and things like that. So that's Younger Adult Sailors United. If you just type in Younger Adult Sailors, it'll probably pop up on Facebook. It's the only so most young person sailing groups are not very active. It's just how it is because there's not enough of us, but it is somewhat active, and it's not a YouTube like advertisement like group. So that's pretty cool. By the way, it's open to everybody. It's not just open to the age group, although the mission is to cater to people who are Generation X and younger. So people like in their early 50s and below, I guess, but anyone could join.
If you want a young crew and you need people for your boat, post on the Younger Adult Sailors United, and you might be able to get some of them.
Yeah, and it's really cool because like people talk about things that aren't really talked about in other groups because people will get upset over all kinds of topics. But we have in the past talked about like, hey, how come there isn't a lot of young people here? How can we get more young people to join the group? How do we expand the pool of people that would be interested in sailing? People who don't grow up doing sailing and things like that. So if you'd like to be part of the discussion, please check it out.
Awesome. Well, we're all for growing the sport and growing the diversity in the sport, and so we're happy to have you two as examples that all kinds of people can enjoy sailing and can enjoy boat ownership for that matter. So we're getting close to 6 o'clock. I want to bring back Sharb and Molly to join us for last call. And we want to thank you so much for being here, and hope that, you've inspired some people to do more sailing or try sailing for the first time, or believe that they can buy a boat, they can be a boat owner, and they can figure it out.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Yeah,
It was a lot of fun.
guys on here, and it's kind of a special experience for me, just because I randomly discovered. I mentioned this before, but I randomly discovered Jerry's Facebook page, and I thought it was so neat, and I barely make it underneath that age. Not that there's an age requirement, but I'm in my late 40s, so I was like, okay, I fit in there. I can join that. Um, and I invited Jerry to just come out and talk at the Annapolis Sailboat Show last year, and I thought he's really doing something. And what was so cool was I don't remember exactly how many members were a part of your Facebook page, but in less than a year, like, it just grew, and it was from people from all over the place, who were genuinely interested in how to do this. And listen, let's be honest. This is everyone pictures an older white guy, with a gray beard, that sails. It is more than that, and the people that I've encouraged to go sailing, and who really just, it's almost hard to explain and describe to them, but once they've gotten out there, they catch the bug, and the bug gets you, and you get out there, and sailing's fun, people, and it's not exclusive at all. It's open to a wide variety of people, and not only ethically, but also financially. Like, you can get out there if you want to, and there's ways to do it. And Jerry, I really appreciate you being out here, and obviously Julia, thank you very much. And Beth, you do a great job with Star Sailing now. It's become one of our most popular parts of the magazine, and highlighting to people that you don't need to grow up in a family that that has a boat, that is for a yacht club. Like, you can get out there and do this very easily. It's just a matter of talking to people that have done it, and getting to know people that own boats, and share the passion of sailing.
Yeah, and understand that most sailors want to share sailing with people who haven't done it before. So
Yeah.
don't be intimidated about asking somebody if you could go on their boat with them one time.
Yeah, and I think you will make their day if you start asking them about sailing. And there's a thing that many sailors know about. It's called the dock walk, and basically you can walk on a dock, and just go up to anybody on the boat and ask them about their boat, or ask them about how they got into sailing. And that is the instant way to start a conversation. And that's how a lot of people got started. I know so many people who I've asked how they got started. That's how they did it. They said, I knew nothing about it. I went down to the docks, and I saw somebody on a boat, and I just asked them about their boat. It's the easiest conversation starter you'll ever. You'll have a hard time getting them to shut up.
And it's fine to tell them that you don't know much about sailing, or you haven't had experience, because the best thing you can do if you want to be on someone's boat and be invited back is be honest about your skill set. And if you're just a positive attitude and an eager learner, and that's what you bring to the boat, that's great. Just be honest about what you know and what you don't know, because they'll be happy to teach you.
Oh, totally.
Absolutely.
Well, great, guys. This was fantastic. Again, I just thank you guys for showing up. We had a great crowd tonight. And if you like what you hear, what you see, share it. Let everybody know about it. And the next time you get a chance, pick up a copy of SpinSheet magazine. If you're not familiar with it, go to SpinSheet.com. You can see our digital flip book on there too. And if you are in the sort of the Chesapeake Bay area, you can pick it up at just any place, your favorite coffee shop or those sorts of things, marinas and yacht clubs. And if you don't find it in a place you think it should, send us an email. We'll make sure they start talking. And without that, thanks so much for joining us. Awesome talk, guys. Thanks, Jerry. Thanks, Julia. Thanks, Beth.
Don't miss another SpinSheet video. Subscribe to our channel today.